Okay, thanks everyone for attending the talk, and I'm gonna try to switch things a little bit. That is like Ben talked a lot about like the vision of the state channel and also other layer to construct the OVM and generalize the rollups. And I'm gonna more focus on the production and the development stuff that we're trying to do, and the real world experience that we gain from running and operating the state channel, and also some applications on top. And some of them are kind of very hilarious stories, and sometimes they are very horrifying stories. And let's make it a very kind of interactive chat. So where we launched. So first of all, we are currently a generalized state channel solution, but we're kind of okay on the channel side, and we're hunting for new stuff to build, and some stuff that we chat about. Yeah, and chat about this. So what did we launch? We launched the first version of the generalized state channel recently with alpha mainnet launch. We're gonna kind of wrap this up with a broader launch, so people can actually run different nodes and connect them together with different routing algorithms pretty soon. But what we launched is not only the underlying platform, but also two additional things. First is this esports gaming platform, where people can just download this mobile app. There are a bunch of HTML5 games that you can play, and they can compete with each other, either in generalized state channel or just simple games to submit a score, and they can kind of pay each other conditionally and kind of win prizes on top. And then we also rolled out this Celer gaming SDK, which is targeting not blockchain developers, but just normal gaming developers to make a blockchain an additional monetization path for them, in addition to advertisement flows and in-app purchases. So these are the things that we're doing, aside from the underlying platform, which is the non-existing Celer Web SDK, which we're going to upgrade to also with a light client that is written purely in JavaScript soon. Hopefully will conform and kind of converge to a common standard in the interfaces on that. So CelerX. What is CelerX? Is just this stuff. You play a game with your friend, and we actually have like 4 games submitted by third-party developers today. This is like an Asian Gonpo game. This entire game itself is running inside of the state channel, and you can see that the interaction between 2 players are very instant. There's no delay, and this fish jump game though is a kind of an HTML5 game, and in the end of the game you submit a score, and the server will compare the score, and it effectively acts as a conditional dependency oracle for the off-chain conditional payment. Like basically in the Celer Network, very important construct you can do is something called off-chain conditional payment. You can conditionally depend on any stuff. So what we have right now is we launched this for about a month and a half, and to date, we processed about $1.4 million transactions to give out the reward. Users are competing against each other around the globe. About 11,000 users are competing over about 300,000 matches. Roughly quite a few users. I'll show you some of the product matrix later. So this is the CelerX gaming SDK, and forget about this part. We also open source the smart contract, the entire smart contract construct alongside with the HTML5 construct for the Gonpo game that we released. And okay, so that part of the slides I just want to kind of quickly go through because I want to get to the kind of experiences of running this stuff. So I'm gonna split this section into 3 parts: the good, bad, and the ugly, of course. So what are the good? I think the most encouraging thing here is that layer 2 is definitely working. Okay, what we have been seeing. This is just like a kind of a screenshot I just did it in our Bix panel, tracking the status of the application. You can see our kind of current daily active users are north of 2,500, around that number. And we haven't done a lot of marketing around that per se. But the key thing to note is that look at the day 1 retention here. The day 1 retention is sometimes beyond 57% or 50%. That is like almost 3 times higher than the industry standard for normal mobile game users. And for this graph, I'm only just showing the real money players. So but we are not congesting Ethereum at all. If you think about it, at the peak time, CryptoKitty have the same level of magnitude users as we have right now, but the entire Ethereum get congested already. So, but we're not congesting it, and also users are keep coming back into the application. And that's what we think is most important. That is, user is retaining in the app, and therefore, we can actually, have a kind of a viable product or have a product market fit in the market, basically. And and another thing that is kind of a good experience when we operate this product and also the platform is about user acquisition. So we always had a small myth saying that, okay, there is this magic segment of users that is blockchain users, right? So, and therefore, because we're a blockchain app, we have to market ourselves towards these blockchain users, either through CoinMarketCap or Etherscan or these kinds of things. For those who haven't marketed the application before, those sites are insanely expensive. You wouldn't I wouldn't name the exact terms, but they're insanely expensive. So we changed the things around and try to do some systematic user acquisitions. So systematic user acquisition has been a long missing piece in the blockchain industry because everyone just assumed this app doesn't work. So everyone just assumed that whoever uses the application must have been a developer or of some sort. So, but we actually tried Google, Facebook. We're just publishing advertisement, doing optimizations on application store listings, and these kind of application promotion scenarios that we just like promoting just another single app. So it turns out this has been on our side. That is, we're seeing about $1 CPI. The CPI here means like the cost per install, just using Google's advertisement AdMods. User acquisition channel, and we use a lot of different user acquisition channels, and these users are actually retaining. Like as long as we're marketing towards the right market, for whoever is building a product out there, these channels does work. It works 10 times better than the blockchain-specific channels. And of course, there are some exceptions in everything. That is. We actually launched a small user acquisition campaign on Binance as well. I think Binance does have like high quality users. We tried this with some other exchanges as well, but like Binance definitely have a high quality user base, and our paying user jumped right up from like on the hundreds to the thousands basically during that week, and they have been retaining pretty well as well. So. Another thing I want to share is about developer adoption. So on the developer adoption side, we are currently having about 150 developers that uploaded the app. Either it's a small game or it's like a medium-sized game. But the model makes sense for the app developers because it is indeed an additional monetization path for them. So the monetization model we have is that if you're playing these games, and winning money and kind of competing with each other, what's going to happen is that let's say you're putting $1 into the game, and then the opponent is putting $1 into the game. In the end, the winner is only going to get $1.6, and 40 cents goes to the developer. So it makes a huge sense for these mini game developers because we hit on the sweet spot of the mini game developers today. That even some developers, even they have hundreds, thousands of users, or even close to 1 million users. Their monetization path is only advertisement. And by using blockchain, we open a global money flow for them. And this global money flow happens to be very well suitable for our underlying technology as well, payment channels. And back and forth payment channels. It's not only one directional, it's like very, very balanced network of payment channels and flowing against each other. And many of the revenues are flowing to our game developers as well. So we have seen game developers popping up, and we have about like 10 games in our pipeline that is ready to be released. We're just trying to pick the right time to do that, and I think this is something that is very encouraging for us. That is, we think we finally starting to find some business model for existing developers that can provide them additional value because they use blockchain. It's not like we try to use the blockchain to make something, but like leverage the possibility of blockchain and also layer 2 to provide value for traditional developers. And that is kind of our approach. And also on the user side, same thing. That is, we're kind of targeting normal users who have no experience on the blockchain experiences, and we're integrating with a lot of ETH1 wrap on that. I will talk about that later as well. So far, we took a very meticulous approach in designing the protocol. We minimized the underlying protocol message exchanged across different kind of nodes in the payment network. The amount of the message, we actually mathematically proved that the amount of the option message exchanged using Celer's protocol is actually the minimal amount of message you need. We did a lot of things on the deployment of the system, and therefore it is actually holding water. We learned this in a hard way when we launched the first beta testnet in March this year, which turned almost to a disaster because there were just a huge amount of users flowing into the network, and the infrastructure cannot hold the water basically. But now everything seems to be running pretty well. Okay, so I'm not only here to talk about the good stuff that I learned, but also share with you some of the bad stuff, and hopefully they can save you guys some future time basically. First, infrastructure. Infrastructure has been extremely hard. It's not running and building our own node or own infrastructure, but the relying infrastructure or the surrounding infrastructure. Basically, Ethereum node, Web3 node. Our node also relies on Web3, and we didn't want to build our own Web3 cluster to query logs, to query events, to monitor events. So we were looking for different kind of solutions, right? So we were trying to use Ethereum, which unfortunately doesn't actually work. And we were also trying to kind of spin up our own, which consumes a lot of time. Therefore, finally, we kind of start to rely on a new upcoming infrastructure running company called Alchemy. So far, the experience has been pretty good. So this is like definitely not an advertisement because we were actually really using them. And but even with that, and even though Ethereum, we actually look at different blockchains as well because we want to kind of try to be a generic kind of layer 2. I would say the biggest roadblocking part for any other blockchain is the infrastructure is just not there. And 99% of uptime is definitely not enough. And I will just go back to the previous slides here. You may see that this, on September 6th, which is I think yesterday, we had a huge drop of active users. Why? Because the infrastructure we relied on had an issue in event query. Like we couldn't see the deposit event. Therefore, all the users who were trying to deposit and withdraw yesterday couldn't just finish the flow. And our support email box just overflowed with customer complaints, and people are swearing at us on Twitter and all that stuff. So this is like the importance of infrastructure actually. And another thing about this is on dispute. Like in layer 2, you always have this kind of mechanism to run dispute and start and resolve dispute. It's not very widely tested how often does these kind of dispute happens, right? So we tested it. So whenever real money is on the line, player 100% definitely cheat. And there are two ways that they cheat. The first way is to just kind of rage quit the game. Basically, in the middle of the game, they don't finish the generalized channel game, they quit. How many of them? Okay. I think that's kind of an interesting statistics that we want to see. So there are a small amount of the people trying to cheat by going offline. That is roughly about 7% of the total players that we have seen. If you really think about it, it's not really that small amount. But it's also a little bit hard to tell because we're kind of trying to make a kind of a malicious assumption about everyone that's disconnected. We're just kind of trying to assume that whoever disconnected is trying to be malicious. So the entire disconnection ratio is about 7% in all the games running on generalized channel. Now, among the 7%, how many percent of the games actually get into the dispute stage, which is basically say the other guy says, oh, this guy left, I'm going to just start to dispute against this kind of rage creators. That is not a large number. About 10% of the people actually start to dispute. So these numbers are interesting. We're basically trying to understand why there aren't a lot more people trying to dispute the rage creator. And maybe just because the amount of money on the line is not that big, or maybe it's just like the trouble that goes through is too much, basically. And we also had this case where there were bounty hunters, basically. So we started to launch this by using phone verification, and then whoever verified the phone number and also deposited some one DAI in the channel will give out another DAI to them. And you would imagine that this kind of a concept of layer 2, this kind of concept of kind of a blockchain is relatively new to the worldwide bounty hunters. Not actually. So we launched the campaign on day 1, and after about 2 days, we start to see bounty hunters picking up. And at the peakest time, we see about 6,000 bounty hunters online at the same time, trying to deposit DAI into the state channel and get the free DAI and withdraw the 2 DAIs out. It did happen, and of course there's no kind of bias on the country and regions. The IPs that we're seeing are all coming from Indonesia and Vietnam, two countries basically. Is what we are seeing, like the bounty hunters coming from, and very sophisticated mechanism. I'm sure there is some VPN trying to tunnel the tool towards that. So we counteracted that by immediately blocking all IPs from that 2 countries. Okay? And after just 2 hours, all over the world there are IP popping up start to do this. So and think about this. We actually do phone number verification. We use a pretty good phone number verification service to exclude all these kind of fake phone numbers, Google Voice numbers, and stuff like that. But it still happens. It happens a lot, and this is like real stuff that we need to be careful about when we actually launch crypto product. And also, we have been noticing there are computer bots start to play the Gomoko game. And because Gomoko game is not exactly kind of a fair game, because like if you get the first hand, you always have an advantage to win. You almost like always win. So we changed the Gomoko a little bit to make it more even. But even that, we see there are insanely good players with extremely low reaction time, and we believe that they are kind of the top players. So this is the part. Sometimes building blockchain project or building blockchain product actually need to go beyond the blockchain issues to kind of even the real world issues. So we built some matching engine to learn the profile, to learn the distribution of the winning rate for each of the users to all of our users, and we single out these kind of outliers in the users, and we match those together. So in the end, on our platform, bots are fighting with bots. And because the business model we have that is basically cutting transaction fees, quickly this griefing mechanism make the bot die away, because like they couldn't make money, and they're just kind of generating frictions and losing transaction fees in the process. And there are a lot of layer 2 frictions involved in this process. First withdraw deposit is really hard. The actual download number is much higher than 2,000, but only that amount of people actually learn how to deposit and how to kind of deposit from layer 1 to layer 2. This is something that we have been constantly trying to address in our product, and see if there are better ways to do this. And we have one interesting thing is that even though we're doing kind of a totally non-custodian and a totally kind of a blockchain style payment system and a kind of a gaming system, it's always good to kind of familiarize the users with the familiar concepts. So we introduced this thing called Celer Pay, and in the IQ and kind of any kind of questions that we answer, we just say, think about this as your checking account, and think about the blockchain asset as your saving account. So that actually clicked. By introducing that kind of a small explanation in the app, the deposit ratio, basically times 4 over like 1 week. So these are the small things that kind of smooth out the frictions, even though they doesn't kind of adhere to the pure blockchain spirit. It's almost like we're pretending we're not blockchain, and underlying we are a blockchain company. So this is like I think a general approach that we found out that are extremely useful for users. And we are also implementing some controversial features that I'm going to chat about. That we are implementing something called trusted code bootstrap. That is, when users are actually starting to buy DAI the first time, we're not letting them to buy into a contract at all. Or what should I put this? Like we're basically creating a contract or creating a channel that is a counterfactual, and basically the user are not creating a channel, but we are creating a channel for the users. And in fact, the channel itself is also not instantiated. It's almost like a virtual channel, right? So to a certain amount, let's say the user is buying like 5 DAI, we allow user to instantiate this kind of channel. So we don't need to consume gas, and the user also don't need to consume gas. And whenever user wants to additionally deposit more or trying to withdraw the money, that's when we try to kind of ask them to have actual on-chain use. And we ran a user study on this, and the early results shows that it actually significantly reduced the cost or reduced the friction of deposit. And also, like interesting thing that is the customer support. Before this, we never thought about customer support is a thing, and and then we launched the user-facing product, and the customer comes, and we receive a lot of complaints every day. And I would say we did a statistical calculation that how many of these are actually because of the software doesn't work or there's a bug. Well, we are early software, so about 15% of them are actually because of a bug. But about 85% of them are just educational questions. And I think that is partly because we are kind of buying, or we're basically doing systematic user acquisition towards the mass without actually specifically targeting blockchain users. But I think that part I'm not sure how to kind of make off. And we're still kind of trying to refine the segment we're marketing to. And hopefully we can either find a scalable customer support solution, because if you go out there and ask all these customer support outsourcing companies that can you support my app is a blockchain app, they will say no to you. So we got said no like maybe 10 times already. That basically says, okay, how about we find someone who can just answer the call and tell customer this is the step you need to do. And they just said, okay, no, like we don't do blockchain stuff. This stuff is too complicated. We cannot understand this stuff. So it is very different from travel side, for example. And now I kind of completely understand or can synthesize, Coinbase's early days when they literally had no kind of customer support. And this is probably the same stuff that they were running into. Okay, another interesting thing, Apple. So this is a mobile app, and we're still on test flight. And the interaction experience with Apple, summarized in a movie is Edge of Tomorrow. Have any of you guys like seen Edge of Tomorrow, like the Tom Cruise and the get shot in the head and the startup game? Okay, so that's exactly that. So you basically got shot in the head again, and because of some regulation changes, and you wake up the other day, submit your app, you go through the disaster process again. You basically every step we move just one step further. If you think about our app, it is a high-risk app. It contains all the sensitive materials in there. It contains cryptocurrency. It contains whether this real money gaming is legal or not. it contains the application inside of the application. Are you guys running decentralized apps? If you look at Coinbase wallet, Trust Wallet, your decentralized app section is gone today. Like you cannot access any of this stuff. So it has been an educational process to work with Apple to educate their reviewers and kind of trying to push through this process. And we have made a lot of progress there. And hopefully, the app will be listed on the App Store very soon in the next week or so, basically. Many of the things that if you are launching a mobile app will get asked is that, is this ETH stuff some game token that you need? If this is a game token, you need to buy this with in-app purchase. So we fight with them on this in-app purchase problem for about a month to let them understand that we are not selling ETH. We're not creating ETH. ETH is something that is a cryptocurrency that is generated by the decentralized network. And that took very long time, surprisingly. Yeah, that's our experience. But they're reasonable. Kind of I would say like if you kind of keep working with them, they're reasonable as long as you can find all the proper kind of guidelines in the Apple Store to your best advantage. I would say I'll leave it to that. So if you're ever considering launching a mobile app on Apple Store with cryptocurrency, let me know. Okay, so the argument. Fiat on-ramps. Fiat on-ramp is basically the ugliest part of using blockchain, I guess, like not necessarily limited to state channel in general. But definitely a fiat on-ramp on state channel is just like kills user conversion, basically. And for all the bad stuff, I think I have good solutions for that. But for the ugly stuff, I think the entire industry just needs to catch on, basically. Yeah, and with that, if you want to kind of try out the gaming app, you can try out at celer.app and follow us at Celer Network. Any questions? Yeah.
This apps in apps problem.
Yeah.
Does this mean that you are not going to be able to allow people to have custom games in the channel on that?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So the apps in-app problem is there are actually two problems. The first problem is dynamically loaded HTML5, and most of the DApp browsers are killed by this because they do not. They are extremely sensitive in terms of dynamically loaded applications into the app. And we're okay because even though that the game itself is implemented as HTML5, we try to explain to them for the Apple release, we don't need to dynamically load that. It can be pre-bundled into the binary. So that's kind of how we explain that problem. And then the second problem is that are you trying to compete with them as an app store? And that is like also a problem that got hit by a lot of the blockchain developers. We're not. We're just focusing on games. We're just focusing on esport games. We're not like providing access to, let's say, decentralized exchanges. We're not doing any of that. So they were also okay with that. So this is how we kind of navigated around that point, basically. Yeah.
So question, so when you say you're going to Apple Store, so I assume as a app in Apple Store, so it will be competitor of other game.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think that will be also raising a threat for those people who play the game?
Mm-hmm.
Blockchain game, just shit and play animal. So which raises the other like concerning for other people, which is out there as well.
Yeah,
I think that could lead how that could be solved as a problem.
That's a great point. And I think our angle here is that we're okay if people say Celer X sucks as a gaming app, but we shouldn't. Our goal here is to not let them even know this is a blockchain app, right? So that's our goal. Basically, we're trying to hide as much detail as possible about blockchain away from the general audience. So we're actually like thinking about even changing the name of DAI into something else to make people easier to understand that this is just like something that pegged to $1 to $. DAI is just like too hard name to change. Like we can definitely need something like USD media, basically. But these are the direction we're going. We're trying to kind of mitigate this entire friction.
Sorry, excuse for my language previously, because that is something that we've been dealing with. Because we had a game which is blockchain game, and the people when we post them on trying to post them on the Google Play, and there's a writer talking with us. What you think are you better than other one? When you're in Google Play, when you're in the Apple Store, your true competitor is other game.
Great point. Yeah, this goes back to the business model that we enabled. The business model we enabled, and also the player value we offer, is that you can actually play and get instant payout. And if with the fiat on-ramp part get all connected up, first of all, this kind of esport competition game, skill-based real money competition game itself is extremely fast growing. The market size in the US alone grew about 50 times in the last year on this particular market. And the way we are enabling this is that we're enabling global audience and global people to compete with each other, which is something that no other app can provide first. And also extremely fast cash out. So for the players of this kind of skill-based cash games, the cash out process is extremely painful. It takes about 3 months for them to actually cash out. So if you have a way that you can really compete with a larger audience, and the user acquisition is actually easier for us because it's blockchain, it's flat, right? So we don't actually need to go through each of the payment service providers, credit card providers, as long as there is a fiat gateway in that particular country. And in the US, I think things are getting much better over time, and hopefully even much better in the next few months. So for the players, it is not just a game. It's a game that you can compete and win money, and it's not just a game you can compete and win money, but a game you can compete and win money with a global audience and with extremely low transaction and processing fee. So that's kind of like the value, the inherent value for the game audience. Yeah. All right. Okay. Cool. Thanks.